Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and this is the podcast where we talk about professional wrestling for a couple of hours right here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. Yes, the podcast, the only wrestling podcast out there. No, don't go look, don't go search. You found me, and that's it. There's no one else. So you might as well just stick with me. That's what we're going to be doing here. And, might as well just go ahead and leave a like on this video if you're watching it on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. Or if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application, well, a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or a 5-star rating on Spotify would be tremendous and would be just like ultimately appreciated. Thank you so much. And you're like, sometimes you're like, Warren, where can I follow you elsewhere than on these broadcast platforms? Well, you can follow me on Blue Sky at MrWarrenHayes.show, or you can join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. The link is in the description. We would love to have you come and hang out in our small yet confusing community. Not confusing, well, a little bit, but mostly awesome, like-minded people. Let's put it that way. We'd love to have you continue these conversations and whatnot, and maybe even start some up on the podcast today on this May 20th, right? I'm double checking the date here, May 20th. We're going to be talking about tournaments. We're going to be talking about the New Japan Best of Super Juniors 33, Best of the Super Juniors. There's a V there that I keep forgetting, or that I keep forgetting to throw in there. So it's the Best of the Super Juniors 33. I'm going to give you a bit of an update on how that's going. Spoiler alert, quite good. We've got the Owen Hart tournament brackets that were revealed over there in All Elite Wrestling. So we are going to be breaking down those as well. And this is all going to be topped off with my review of Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor 2026, and maybe a few other things along the way. So let's get right through it. Go right through it. No, actually, don't go through it. Take the time to enjoy. Jesus Christ. Everything was going so well, and then I stuttered at the end. What do you want from me? It's another Warren Hayes classic. Thank you for being here. I want to start things off tonight by giving a little update, a little where are we at right now in regards to the Best of the Super Juniors tournament 33, the 33rd edition. I got to tell you, the tournament has been so good so far. I think might even be going a bit above and beyond expectations, because everything has been super solid. I find that I find the opening matches have all been terrific. The bullshit, because there is bullshit, because look at Block B. You've got Yoshinobu Kanemaru and Sho in the same block. You've got Yo, who is another bullshit master. You got Hayo, who good wrestler, but is not above doing fucking nonsense either. So maybe not my favorite block, but when there is nonsense, when there is bullshit that happens on the show, it's all very short. And when I say short, I'm talking 2 to 3 minutes short. Nothing that can get you upset. Things that are not going to waste your time. That you're not sitting there for 10 minutes going, oh my God, is this shit ever going to come to a close? This is very, very solid so far. There's been already some excellent matches. I think there's some standout stuff, but it's really been great so far. If we let's say we talk about the standings right now and where we're at and whatnot, A block has we're 3 matches in, 3 evenings in, I should say. So it's not like we're having a clear picture. We're still in the opening salvos of stuff. But A block right now, we've got Titan and Taguchi, who are at the top with 6 points apiece. Then you've got Kosei Fujita, who's got 4 points. Then you've got a huge blob of people with 2 points. Jun Kasai, Valiente Jr., Master Wato, Robbie X, Francesco Akira, Nick Wayne, and Daiki Nagai, who is rounding out the bottom at 0. No big surprise there because Nagai, who you don't see on the graphic that I have right here, Nagai is replacing Doki, who was injured previous to the tournament. So he just pulled out of the tournament. He said, no, they didn't play it as an injury, but he is injured. So Nagai took his spot, and he's technically, well, more than technically, he still is a young lion right now. So he's going to be taking all the L's on that front. So those are the standings there. As far as B block goes, we've got Sho and Daisuke Sasaki, who are both at the top with 6 points, with the number 6 as the number of points. And you've got Yo at 4. This basically should show you that I'm a little exasperated with B block as it stands right now. Then you have the blob here again. Hayo, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Robbie Eagles, El Desperado, Taiji Ishimori, and Kushida all have 2 points. And Jacob Austin Young clearly is going to be the guy who will be eating the pins throughout the tournament. He has no points, so he rounds up the bottom. So there's still a lot of stuff to go on yet. Of course, we're still extremely early in the tournament, so no one is facing elimination right now. Of course, it's not looking good for Nagai or JAY. It's not looking good for either guy. So that's the setup that we have so far. Look, I'm going to tell you, I'm kind of surprised with a couple of decisions that they've been making, right? Mostly the idea of pushing Rizuki Taguchi, the older vet, the guy who's been around forever and ever. And when I say pushing, like he's won all 3 of his matches so far. And do we need this? Is this something that we want in the year of our Lord 2026 to have Taguchi going on a run here? Then again, in these types of round robin tournaments in New Japan, typically there'll be a couple of people who are going to come out strong out the gate and then are going to falter as the tournament advances, and that might be him. It's just sometimes I wonder, sometimes I wonder if this is the path we really want to go. We really want to go down with certain wrestlers. Like, wouldn't you want to push other guys? But then again, like Wato is one of the guys who lost to he's one of the guys who lost to Taguchi. So, maybe not that big a deal either. He beat Nagai as well. Well, Nagai's the young lion, and he's supposed to be taking pins, right? Taguchi also defeated Valiente Jr., which was a bit of a surprise because it ended very abruptly. Valiente did a move, sort of collided with Taguchi on the move, and then started pointing to his knee, and then the referee called the match. So there's a bit of an injury scare right now when it comes to Valiente Jr. Taguchi gets the win here. Was that planned? Was that the thing? Was that supposed to happen? Or is this just the situation we're in because Valiente got hurt? It sucks if this is indeed the case that Valiente Jr. got hurt, because this was only his second match of the tournament, right? Wasn't it like his? Let me double check here. but I believe he had fought Taguchi and Nagai as well. So yes, like this was only like his second match of the tournament, and so that was really a shame. It's really a shame if he did get hurt, because he was one of the guys that I was most looking forward to see how he was going to do in this environment. Valiente Jr. is one of the low key good workers that CMLL has right now. I say low key because he's not the guy who's regularly featured on Friday nights in Arena Mexico. You'll see him on, the other shows, on the Saturday shows, on the Tuesday shows, but you won't see him as often on Friday. But he's a guy he's very young and is also, he's creating his own spot as well within CMLL. There's a lot of buzz around him, so I was looking forward to it. So if he's injured, that would suck. That means he'd be out of the tournament and he'd have to forfeit. Now I'm saying a lot of ifs, mostly because nothing has been announced yet out of New Japan. New Japan hasn't said a word in regards to the injury, the status, if he's going to be able to continue to compete, if he's going to be removed from the tournament. We just don't know. But the other reason why I'm saying if is because, well, I heard that the injury that Valiente took was to cover for an injury that Taguchi has in regards to his back. And the plan here was that since Taguchi was supposed to win the match, well, they just worked out the thing where Valiente would feign hurting himself, and then they'd call the match, and Taguchi would win without having to work the match, which would allow him more time to recuperate. This happened on Saturday, and the next round of competition is on Wednesday. So that would have given Taguchi quite a few days to recoup, if this is indeed true. The news, I guess, we'll have. I'm assuming we're going to have some clarity tomorrow, Japan time, right? And isn't it already like tomorrow in Japan? Yeah, it's like 9 a.m. right now in Japan. So I'm assuming that at some point, sooner than later, we're going to get some clarity in regards to Valiente Jr.'s status within the Best of Super Juniors. Everyone has a night off in the tournament. So like why am I trying to explain this more? Every wrestler has one night in the tournament where they're not wrestling. They have the night off. And Valiente's night off, unfortunately, already happened. So, so he can't even squirm out. He wouldn't be able to move those around. He's already had his night off. So he's essentially wrestling till the very end. Look, we'll see how bad it is. But like I had been, it had been circulating that, well, maybe Coach Taguchi was the guy who was actually injured, and they did this little angle so that Taguchi wouldn't have to miss an evening of competition, but then at the same time would not have to work and still win his match. So we'll see what happens moving forward here. In this regard, we'll keep an eye out for what happens to. We'll see what happens to old Valiente Jr. I honestly hope he's okay. I really, really do hope he's okay, because this was a shining star that I was excited to see what he was going to do here. And listen, I think one of the big stories of the tournament so far is how much fun Jun Kasai has been. How much fun he has been in this tournament, how good he's been too. And it's kind of shocking, but he has had two out of the 3 nights that we have so far. He's had 2 matches. Both of them have been really fun. And one of the matches is actually one of my favorite of the tournament. His match that he had with Kosei Fujita, which was on Saturday, right on night 3. If I'm remembering this correctly, He was so much fun. The match sort of skewed into becoming a death match, where Kasai's running around. He's got the skewers and he's busting open, like he's blading Fujita, who's on the floor early on in the match, right? Like, holy shit. Okay, all right, we're doing some real stuff. But even outside of the deathmatch stuff, Jun Kasai, friends, is 51 years old. He is my age. He was born the same year I am. I am older than him by a few months. And he is so fun. He's quick. He's mobile. For a guy who's spent his entire life battering and bruising his body, he's in incredible shape. His matches are snappy and fun, and they're well put together, and they're fun, just fucking fun. I am floored, in fact, at how good Jun Kasai has been so far. And the crowds love him. Well, of course, first couple, did he show up? I think he did show up in Korakuen. Well, of course, Korakuen Hall fucking loves Jun Kasai. But now, on the Saturday show, he shows up and he just gets great reactions from the crowd. I'm like, fuck yeah. I was one of the apprehensive people going into this tournament, looking at Kasai and saying, is Kasai going to fit? Kasai's working New Japan, and he's just been phenomenal. He's been absolutely phenomenal. It's so good, and you can tell. Here's something that's very, very interesting that I've noticed. You can tell that he is appreciated by the wrestlers. You can tell that he's appreciated by the people who are working the tournament with him. You can tell that they're happy to have him and that they're happy to work with him. Kosei Fujita during his match looked like he was having the time of his life. It was so much fun. It's sometimes, when you have in pro wrestling, sometimes when you have the real emotions seep through, it just, you can feel it, and whatever you're watching here right now isn't entirely phony, I think he's one of the, I think right now, 3 nights in, Jun Kasai is one of the biggest stories of the tournament, because he's doing his own thing, but also adapted in a way where he realizes it. Look, it's New Japan. It's not freedoms. We're not pulling out the light tubes. There's a certain way to do things. It's best of Super Juniors, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I see him now in this tournament, and I'm like, I can't wait to see what he does with Robbie X. I can't wait to see what he's going to do with fucking Nick Wayne. It's good. He's so good. It's just been so much fun so far. That's it. Like, one of the big stories of the tournament right now is what he's doing. So, like I mentioned, I've been praising a lot of, of stuff happening in A Block, but A Block is really the better of the two. Let's be honest. Especially when you consider that B Block has Sho and Sasaki at the top. Look, I am completely unfamiliar with Daisuke Sasaki. I'm unfamiliar with the body of his work. And I posted that on Blue Sky this weekend, and then I got a few people coming in giving me links. It's like, read this article, look at this, and there's Daisuke Sasaki super fans out there. There's people who are, who are like, hey, Warren, if you don't understand it, allow this primer to walk you through, right? And I'm like, okay, cool, but at the same time, I shouldn't need a primer. He should be able to just like get into a ring and wrestle, and then I go, because right now I don't get it. I don't, and apologies to anyone in the chat right now who are like, oh no, Warren, what are you doing? Daisuke Sasaki is my favorite wrestler. I don't get it. I don't quite get it. He's a fine worker. He's not terrible. And, he's not as fucking annoying as Sho is. He's not as fucking annoying as Yo is. Though I can't stand either of these men in this tournament so far. But I don't understand the levels of fandom that I just don't get it. I don't quite understand it. But he's not terrible. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and bury him. It's just like I don't quite understand it, why people were so incredibly into him joining the tournament. But listen, look, in the meantime, you've got him at the top, and he's there with Sho, and Sho can go kick rocks. But at the very least, like I said when we start, just at the start there a few minutes ago when we started talking, at the very least, all the bullshit that Sho's been involved in has all been quite short. On night one, they got rid of it. On night one, the match between Sho and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, so it wouldn't weigh over the tournament for the entirety, right? Just like, no, they got rid of that fucking nonsense out the gate, and they did their shenanigans, and it lasted like 2 minutes, and I was like, I could not have been happier. I could not have been happier. Ready to move on. Then you have, and then Yo's another guy who's sort of like, I don't say like given up. That would be the wrong way to do it, to say it. But he knows his career's not going any farther than where it is now. So he's just a goofball now. He's just an absolute like dopey goofball, and I've got no use for him either. His match with Hyo, where I was excited to see, like, okay, let's see Hyo. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. It could be Hyo, right? It's probably Hyo. His match with Hyo, like I was like, okay, let's see what they can do together, and it was just like, again, more nonsense, and both of them feeding into each other. Someone recently told me Yo should go to DDT, and he'd be happy there, and I'd be like, yes, he would. He'd fit in like a glove. He'd fit in like a glove in DDT, and I wouldn't have to see him again. It always baffles me how, like, even less than a decade ago, we were looking at both of these guys, at Sho and Yo, doing the Roppongi 3K thing and saying, my God, I can't wait for these guys to break out. They're so good. And particularly Sho, where he'd go out and they'd started positioning him like he was like a power junior, right? Like, this is a guy who could have transitioned easily to main roster, right? And they were putting him in these matches. He had like a trios of matches with Shingo Takagi, and they were excellent. And we were so stoked about the future of Sho Tanaka, and I'm sure he was stoked as well. And then somehow he became the junior for Evil's House of Torture, and it's been all downhill since. There is a timeline. Like, we had Sho versus Robbie Eagles, right? Over the past couple of days. There is a timeline where we are legitimately excited for a Robbie Eagles Sho Tanaka match, but it's not our timeline, unfortunately. And that makes me sad. Look, in regards to these two guys being at the top, it is what it is. I think, Sho could stay at the top for a good part of the tournament, right? Like, this is booking that we see oftentimes in New Japan, where it's like you're gonna have a heel hanging around at the top of the block, but then things are gonna slowly start falling apart, right? And Sasaki being at the top for now, that's fine, but he's not moving forward. Like, he's just not moving forward in the tournament. So it is what it is. Same thing with Taguchi. Taguchi essentially probably had the three most. He had his three clearest wins. I think maybe you could have another one with Robbie X, maybe, but Taguchi defeating Daiki Nagai and Master Wato and Valiente Jr., if that was indeed the plan. I think these are all plausible wins for Taguchi, but there's a bunch of guys here he's not defeating moving forward. I think the hardest part of his tournament is coming up, as far as who's left on the who's left to go. Right? It's like in B block, Desperado has only 2 points and 3 matches in, if I'm not mistaken. Let me pull up my little stat board here. Yeah, he's 3 matches in and he has 2 points, so he only has 1 victory. That's not going to stay. That's not going to last. That's not going to last. Yoshinobu Kanemaru got a victory. Good for him. That will probably be one of his last. You're going to have Taiji Ishimori. Taiji Ishimori, here's another guy that I typically sort of lift my nose at. I sort of poo-poo away whenever he gets involved in this fucking guy again, right? And he's motivated. He's been very good. He's been excellent even. He's been very, very, very good in this tournament so far. Look, I don't know what it is exactly, but maybe there's a combination of things. The combination being, on one hand, having a bunch of people from the outside, because there's quite a few outsiders in this tournament, coming in to participate, adding some freshness, some fresh matches. That's always fun. But also, the specter of Hiromu Takahashi not being there, maybe that helps. Where you're not feeling like they're booking the tournament and they're like, oh, right, we have to do something with Hiromu, right? Maybe that's part of the thing too. Like, I think it's curious. Look, it's curious at the very least that the first Best of the Super Juniors tournament since Hiromu Takahashi is no longer with the company is doing really good, feeling fresh, feeling interesting, keeping me excited. Anyway, if you're looking for match recommendations, you've come to the right place, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and by the way, Robbie X has been very good too. Robbie X, extremely underrated, beloved by the Japanese fans. The Japanese fans really, really love the Robbie X. Like, if I'm New Japan, he's in my upper crust of juniors. He's in my upper crust of juniors for sure. Here are my match recommendations. Junkasai Kosei Fujita, I talked about from night 3. It was on night 3, right? Yeah. Right? I don't remember. Hang on a second. I think it was from night 3. It was from night 3. Night 3 was very good. Night 3 was probably my favorite night of the tournament so far. I think everything was solid, and then you land 2 like really excellent matches on it. So Jun Kasai and Kosei Fujita and El Desperado versus Robbie Eagles, which was just a tremendous match, where they're working body parts. Despe favoring the knee. Eagles is working over the Eagles is working body parts as well. Just incredible stuff by both these guys, who are just tremendous, incredible workers. So both of those on night 3. You get then also Kosei Fujita versus Francesco Akira on night 1, the main event. Kosei Fujita, he's an incredibly solid worker, and he's getting more and more comfortable being in these top spots. Francesco Akira is a junior that I have always had an affection for, and ever since the House of not the House of Torture, but the United Empire went heel, it's brought out like the aggression in him, the heelishness, and I think it's only made him better. I think it's legitimately made him better. He's fired up. He's impulsive. There's depth to what he's doing. Anyway, main event of night 1 was great. So was Taiji Ishimori versus El Desperado on night 2. The main event from night 2. Surgical body part work, I should say. Ishimori trying to beat Desperado working the knee and Ishimori basically sacrificing his knee throughout the match to try to beat Desperado. Just fantastic stuff. Just fantastic stuff. And you got a couple of other sneaky bangers. You've probably heard of the Kushida Robbie Eagles barefoot grappling clinic that happened on night 1. That was a lot of fun. I will agree. The problem that happened now since from that point on is that everyone that Kushida has fought since, which are Sho and Daisuke Sasaki, have all like said, hey, fight barefoot, we'll do the grappling thing. And of course those two guys are heels, and then, use that to their advantage. And both of those matches ended with some Mr. Sacco callbacks. They're doing the mandible claw with Mankind, putting that damn dirty sock on his hand and then sticking it into the guy's mouth, and then they're passing out. So I hope they got that out of their system, and that Kushida's not going to do this anymore, because it's kind of dumb at this point. I don't know why he's letting himself be suckered into it by heels. On top of that, he should know. He should know the House of Torture is no good. And, should just look at how Sasaki dresses, and he's like, okay, this is not a baby face. And just like, okay, no, we're not going to start grappling barefoot. I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing it anymore. Hopefully he's not doing it anymore, because it's played out at this point. So that's what we're going so far. Look, right now, it's a good tournament. The vibe is good. 3 nights in. On my little dopey rating scales, I've got 8 matches at 3.5 stars or higher. 2 main events at 4.25. 4 matches at 4 stars or higher. The bad stuff is super contained, very quick. Titan Fujita, Robbie X, Francesco Akira, Jun Kasai, they're all having really great tournaments so far. Taiji Shimori, Robbie Eagles. So there you go. If you're sleeping on it, I think you should give it a shot. It's been, if you're into it, if you want to see some high level pro wrestling by some of the best of the junior heavyweights out there, it's going well so far. And we haven't hit the midway part in the tournament yet, so we'll keep an eye on how things are going. And I'm enjoying it because and then I'm like, okay, I'm getting all my I'm taking notes and I'm looking at everything and watching all the matches and following every day, and I'm also warming up for the G1. I'm also warming up for the G1 Climax this summer, and I'm thinking to myself, because I have been legitimately wondering if I'm going to do the daily return to doing the daily G1 coverage like I did in years previous. Didn't do it last year because I was traveling in the US for a third of the tournament. So I was like, I'm not going to jump in and start doing coverage with 2/3 of the tournament yet to go. It doesn't make sense. So I'm thinking, I was thinking about doing it again this year, but I'm also hoping that New Japan is going to get good for the heavyweights. So that's my main concern. But I'm moving towards, yes, I'm going to do G1 coverage this year, daily G1 coverage this year. I'm leaning towards that. And maybe it's the juniors who are suckering me into doing it because it's been a good tournament so far. Maybe. Anyway, how's Nick Wayne doing? As you noticed, I haven't talked about him. He's fine. But I don't know. Like, look, I want to extend some leeway towards young Nick Wayne, who has been gone from wrestling for months, hasn't been wrestling in a while. His first few matches, his first real matches back outside of the AR Fox stuff last week, is here, right? So he's getting back into the vibe. It's, Japan, so it's, a different style than what he's used to. So it's probably quite a shock. I thought he's been doing fine. The match that he had on Saturday, who did he fight? Francesco Akira. I thought that was very good. And I thought that was his best match so far. Because he had other matches, like his match with Kosei Fujita was pretty good. But I also thought he was a little sloppy. And on night one, he had fought, I can't quite remember, just looking through my notes here, Robbie X. And I was very disappointed in this match. Because first and foremost, these guys know each other. Like, they've wrestled each other multiple times in the past. And I was rubbing my hands together and going, all right, they're about to go all out. And I thought Nick Wayne sort of dragged it down. I thought Nick Wayne wasn't absolutely not on par with what Robbie X was trying to do. So look, again, just 3 matches in the tournament. We've still got a long way to go. Nick Wayne is very good. He's a good wrestler. So, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that, I'm not going to put him on the same level as fucking Show and Yo here. But I'm waiting for the breakthrough Nick Wayne performance in this tournament. Haven't seen it yet, but again, like, we're 3 matches in, so I don't want to sound like I'm being unreasonable here. Next year they should send Hook. Hook can't run with these people. I'm sorry. I would have to see Hook in a proper Japanese juniors match before sending, send Hook in this tournament. Look, do you remember a couple of years ago, Wheeler Yuta, when I think it was during his run as pure champion, before the Death Riders, before the heel turn, he was sent to the tournament and we were all going, oh, cool. Good for him. It's like, Yuta, good little wrestler. So, and he did not show up. And it was like, wow. It was like nothing terrible, but just like so incredibly bog average. You're like, okay, this might have actually exposed him. Like Nick Wayne, Hook can't go in here for a learning experience. Hook has to come in here to show up. Because there are guys on this roster who are not going to be like, oh yeah, you want to come in here and I'll make you look good? No, that's not how it works. But a lot can happen in a year. But right now I'm like, I said, no, don't send Hook. Absolutely not. He's going to get super exposed. The brackets for the Owen Hart Foundation Tournament 2026 were announced this week on AEW Dynamite. We've got it. It's all set up. The finals will take place for both the men and the women tournaments at Forbidden Door on June 28. We are going to talk about this a little bit. We are going to break this down for a wee little bit. For those of you with the benefit of video right now, you can see the brackets on the left side. Samoa Joe will be facing Will Ospreay. Mark Davis will be facing Jungle Jack Perry. On the right side, Swerve Strickland will be taking on Bandito, and Claudio Castagnoli will be fighting Brody King. These are, of course, all the quarterfinal matches, and these are really good. And we're starting with the men. We'll get to the women after we're done talking about this initial bracket here. And Samoa Joe and Will Ospreay, Samoa Joe versus Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland versus Bandito are both going to take place on Double or Nothing in about 10 days time at the New York Louis Armstrong venue, so on and so forth. So that's very exciting. I'm glad that the tournament is kicking off with 2 big matches on pay-per-view. That's very cool. Samoa Joe, Will Ospreay is a first-time match. First time ever. And at first I was kind of shocked. It's like, what? Really? That's impossible. But then you think about it and it's like, yeah, when would their paths have crossed otherwise? They've really been ships in the night, quite frankly. So I'm very excited to see this match. Now, it's Samoa Joe in 2026. So, we're not Samoa Joe. We're not, it's not 2008 Samoa Joe, right? So, more limited and whatnot, but it's still fucking Samoa Joe. Smarter, wiser, just so good at what he does. And then Will Ospreay, who just instantly elevates everything in a wrestling ring. This could absolutely rule. I'm very much looking forward to it, especially with the story that they're telling where Will Ospreay is now acquiring a new set of tools from the Death Riders that he will inevitably have to pull out to defeat Samoa Joe, right? This is good stuff. This is a very good opening match. And then Swerve versus Bandito. Well, look, I kind of thought that we were going to be doing a Ring of Honor World Championship title match. That's not what we're doing here. And I'm very excited to see how look, I've been intrigued by this matchup. I think it's a very interesting matchup. Plucky babyface Bandito and Swerve in his in full on nasty mode, and he's going to be bigger than Bandito. I think this is a very interesting matchup. Mark Davis and Jack Perry going at it again. Congratulations to Mark Davis, by the way. Holy shit. I told you he was having a good year. And this is exactly what you do with Mark Davis. You give him a mid-card belt and you let him have, just kick-ass singles matches. Just have him go in there and have kick-ass singles matches. And yes, he's going to fight Jungle Jack again. And, Jungle Jack is probably good. There's a very fair chance he might get his win back or not. I don't know. It could legitimately, this could go either way. And Claudio and Brody King, well, that's awesome. That's fun as hell. I've got no qualms with these matches and the potential matches that might follow as well. There's a lot of people who said, there's no real depth to the tournament this year. And I'm like, what? No, stop. Wrong. This is nice. Look, I don't think it's as unpredictable as it was last year, right? Last year was a very unique set of circumstances. So, I don't think it's as unpredictable. I don't think it's as wild as last year, but everything here is just, these are all quality matches. These four quarterfinals, these four quarterfinal matches. Like, have you watched the New Japan Cup for the past couple of years? The quarterfinal rounds are rough as hell, brother. I think compared to last year, I think it is, I don't think it has the same electricity that it did last year. But then again, last year, everyone was so focused on the Hangman, right? Everyone was so focused on the Hangman story, which was excellently done, by the way. So, there's like, I don't know, this year it's not as it's not as awesome and compelling, I guess. But these are all quality matches. I have no issues with any of this setup here. I think it's a foregone conclusion though that Will Ospreay is winning, right? Unless they do decide to do something completely out of left field. It's a foregone conclusion that Will Ospreay is winning. Will Ospreay is the main character of AEW this year. I don't know if you've noticed, but he's the main character. So he's winning this. He's going to Wembley. He's winning the title back off of MJF. That's what's happening. And I'm okay with that. Don't get me wrong. I'm okay with all of that. The question is, what do we do? What do we do moving forward, right? Now, Will Ospreay versus Jack Perry, that's a match I'd like to see. That I'd like to see in a, semifinals. There's some good stakes. Both guys work really hard. I know there's a lot of people who really don't like Jack Perry. I think Jack Perry's a fantastic mid-card act. I think legitimately, I think he's very good as an explosive babyface mid-card act. Anything higher, and then you start to lose me. The heel stuff stinks. I'm not a fan of his presentation, really. But I know, like, there are some people who have completely written him off, and it's like, please go to WWE. And it's like, no, I don't dislike him to that degree. I really don't. But are we so sure that Jungle Jack Perry is moving forward here? Because I bring unto you the idea of Will Ospreay and Mark Davis having another match off the heels of the one they had a couple of weeks ago, where Mark Davis just pummeled the shit out of Will to the point that the doctor called the match. So off of that energy, we have the rematch here. Ospreay Davis, well, for the purposes here too. And then you go at it again, and Will gets his win back, and it's, he proves to himself, the story being that he proves to himself that he's not as vulnerable as he was, because he overcame the guy who completely destroyed him, who pushed him over the edge, with whom the situation that caused Will to join up with the Death Riders and say, yes, please save my career type of thing. I think that's a much more compelling story than having Jack Perry move forward, chat. I think that's a lot more fun. And it'll be a better match. It'll be a better match too, I think. And then on the right side, if we go back to Swerve, Bandito, Castagnoli, and King, already online last night when everything was being announced, there were tons of people on Blue Sky saying, oh, well, it's Will and Swerve at the end of the tournament in the finals, and Will has to dive into his new Death Rider bag of tricks if he wants to have an opportunity to beat Swerve, right? And I'm like, sure, that makes sense. That's fine. But what if we did something fun? What if we did something much more fun and have Bandito win? What if Bandito wins and he moves forward to the semis, and Brody King beats Claudio and moves to the semis? So then you have the two friends, Brody King and Bandito, big guy, little guy, who have to face one another in the semis. People are going to eat this shit up. AEW fans will eat this fucking shit up. I will. That'd be awesome. And then Bandito wins, and we get Ospreay versus Bandito. Fresh match. Something that we haven't seen before. Very interesting. And on top of that, here's what I think, why I think AEW might go down this spot. And you've probably figured it out as well if you're paying attention. Tony Khan loves Bandito and sees Bandito as a top guy. So what does a promoter need to do to make a guy into a top guy? What does a promoter need to do that? Well, you have him compete in the John Cena Classic, and you have the crowd vote for him even though he's losing. You have him win. You have him win. No. You have him win big matches against top guys. That's what you have to do. And TK absolutely sees Bandito as a top guy in this company. And he's elevating a bunch of guys. I don't know if you've noticed. That Kevin Knight is another guy that's being elevated right now. And Bandito's another guy here. So for me, for my money, Bandito versus Swerve in the tournament here, Bandito sneaks a win, moves on, and we get Will and Bandito at the end, which is fucking great. Which absolutely rules. That's a match AEW fans would love to see. After Bandito defeats Brody King, his best friend, his pal. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that wouldn't be interesting. Look, I wouldn't mind either way. I wouldn't mind. Swerve moving forward is fine, and we all understand the story, and it's a fine story to tell, and it's okay. But I also think I think the story that Swerve is trying to tell right now, even though it needs a little finesse, a little more refinement, but we're getting there. I think the story he's trying to say is that he wants to be the most dangerous man in AEW again, but he's having problems making that happen. He's not being booked. The booker's afraid and all that, Okay. All right. And I think ultimately, if Bandito wins here, defeats Swerve is going to be like, I'm not done with you yet, asshole. And then they have a rematch. Let's say you could drag this out to All In if you wanted. And this would be Swerve's big match at All In. And it could be for the Ring of Honor World title. And you could put it on Swerve, and Swerve gets the big win at Wembley, and I think that's fine. Or you do something really fucking bold, and you have Bandito beat Swerve again at Wembley Stadium, because that's how you make top guys. I love fucking tournament wrestling. I love tournament wrestling for this kind of shit. I think this is great. I love brackets. I love bracketology. This is great. So officially, I'm going to go pick your brain in the second chat. We're going to see what you guys are, and gals and non-binary pals, are figuring out here. But Warren Hayes predicts Will Ospreay defeats Samoa Joe. Mark Davis defeats Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay defeats Samoa Joe defeats, let me start over. Warren Hayes predicts Will Ospreay defeats Samoa Joe. Mark Davis defeats Jungle Jack Perry. Semifinals. Will Ospreay defeats Mark Davis. Will Ospreay advances to the finals. On the right side of the bracket, Bandito defeats Swerve Strickland. Brody King defeats Claudio Castagnoli. Semifinals. Bandito defeats Brody King. Moves on to the finals. Finals are Will Ospreay versus Bandito. Will Ospreay wins the Owen Hart men's tournament. That's my prediction for the men's side. Let's go take a look at the lady. Oh no, wait, before we take a look at the live chat before we go see the women's bracket. I'm not seeing anyone predicting it, but Will Ospreay versus Claudio in the final would have interesting storyline implications. That, honestly, that would be really, really rad. That would be extremely rad as well. I feel like the breadcrumbs that they're setting right now, or that they have been setting up until this point for their stories, that I feel like that wouldn't make sense. Because look, we got to point something out here. I pointed it out on the Dynamite review, but I'm going to point it out here too. Kudos to Tony Khan, the creative team, for how they've set up this tournament and how much foresight they're booking. This is how you can tell when AEW is booking in advance and thinking of things ahead of time, like they did months ago when there was all the everyone jockeying to be the number one contender for MJF's title. Remember that? And I was in love with that situation, but you could tell like that had already been plotted out, and there was some real thought being put into it, and it was excellent. And you can see the same thing happening here, because it's been weeks now that Samoa Joe's been calling out Will Ospreay, setting the seeds for this match here. Swerve and Bandito is another thing that's been going on for weeks. Mark Davis and Jack Perry is also something that's been simmering. So they've been doing this. They've been setting these stories up for a while, and they're all like sort of coming to a head here in the tournament. It's excellent booking. It's excellent booking. There's nothing you can say to the opposite. It is excellent booking. It's well put together. Makes me wonder about the card for All In, because what are Kenny and Moxley doing? It's a very good point. And maybe the bigger rematch is Kenny Omega versus Swerve Strickland, right? Maybe that's the bigger match. Ospreay learning under Mox makes sense because Swerve has never beaten Mox in a one-on-one. Oh, look at that little wrinkle. I hadn't thought of that. I think Wembley will be Ospreay versus Omega. As Omega is not in this tournament, I think he will win the title from MJF Darby. Bold prediction, TSG. Bold prediction. I'll hang on to that one. It could be. Look, because here's the thing. The thing that we have to understand with Max is that, contrary to what everyone wants to believe about Max, he is also a guy who understands how wrestling goes and so on and so forth. And he's not necessarily the power-hungry, Hogan-esque backstage politiker that a lot of people make him out to be. I think that if talking about it, MJF, backstage, and MJF would be like, look, I don't mind not being in the main event of Wembley because I've already had my Wembley main event. So it's fine to me. And I could see him just like going, yeah, sure. Kenny, go right ahead. Because Kenny and Ospreay is a huge match. What are we talking about? Like, it's a huge fucking match. Probably bigger than Ospreay MJF. Although, that's also a huge match. I don't want to like give the impression that I think that MJF, Ospreay is small potatoes, but MJF and Ospreay is just Will and Kenny is just like a little notch over. And now the women's Owen Hart Foundation tournament brackets. On the left side, for those of you who do not have the benefit of video right now, Persephone will be taking on Stardom's Hazuki, which is a nice little addition. Willow Nightingale will be fighting Alex Windsor, and that match will take place at Double or Nothing in about 10 days. Mina Shirakawa, then on the right side, we'll head on over to the right side of the bracket now. Mina Shirakawa will be taking on Athena, and Sky Blue will be taking on Sari. God damn it. Sari is in this fucking tournament. Let's go. Oh my Lord. That popped me huge. I got so excited when I saw Sari's name on the bracket. God damn. All right. One thing at a time, though. Let's go back to the left side. One thing at a time here, Warren. I think with what we're missing, what's lacking on the men's bracket, which is like, unpredictability maybe to a degree, things not being as clear cut or things being very clear cut. I think the women's bracket sort of compensates. I think this is a very interesting tournament layout. I think the participants are fantastic. It really has a great diversity and is really breaking from everyone else you'd be expecting an AEW tournament to be filled with. Persephone showing up here, of course, she's on the dual contract deal, but nonetheless, a nice addition. It'll be nice to have her in the tournament. Hazuki stopping in from Stardom. That's tremendous. Like, I love when these tournaments are able to include wrestlers from other promotions, from the sister promotions. I think this is great. That's one thing that's missing from the men's side. But the men's side are telling a very proper set of stories. That's fine. The women, it feels more like, oh shit, anything can happen here now. Like it feels like a sports tournament where you're just like, oh, we've got some wild cards in here. And that's exciting. Hazuki is great. I think she's tremendous. Persephone's very good. This should be fun. This should be a fun match. I'm looking forward to it. Persephone's winning. Like it's gonna be they're gonna fly in Hazuki for the tournament matches and then send her home for the tournament match and send her home type of thing. Here's what I'm hoping that AEW does with Hazuki. I hope they bring her in and have her work like a squash on Dynamite, maybe, even a Collision. Just introduce her to the AEW audience in a short match before throwing her into the den of wolves here. Same thing with Sari, but Sari, we'll get to that in a second because Sari is a special case. Anyway, Hazuki's not advancing. Persephone is. Willow Nightingale versus Alex Windsor is going to fucking rock. I have very high hopes for this match. This is two women who aren't afraid to hit hard and get hit hard as well. I'm very, very excited for this. This is going to be fun. Two great pro wrestlers. Willow's advancing. No disrespect to Ms. Windsor, but Willow's advancing here. She's got a championship in the company. It's the second biggest women's belt in the company. She's not just like losing in her first outing. Go to the right side. Mina Shirakawa and Athena. Athena's going forward, right? That's what makes most sense, right? But then again, Athena on main roster. Listen to me. Athena, when she gets invited to wrestle on AEW, she is no great shakes. She loses. She loses all the time. She ends up losing everything that she's involved in. She lost her feud with Toni Storm. She lost, she was Mercedes' partner in the tag team tournament. They lost in the first round, if I'm not mistaken, too. She lost in the Owen last year. She loses. Athena listen to me. Athena in AEW is a loser. And I've talked about this before, and I can refresh your memory very, very quickly. The perception, because of everything that they do with Athena, the perception is that Athena is too good to be in Ring of Honor because she beats everyone, and no one can stand up to her because everyone are chumps. So she beats everyone because she's too good to fight, to be fighting. She's too good to be in Ring of Honor, but she's not good enough to be in AEW. That's what they've been doing with Athena for the 12 months, 18 months. That's essentially her story. Every time she comes up to AEW, she loses. So would it be that much of a stretch if she lost to Mina Shirakawa? It wouldn't be that much of a stretch. But I hope she wins, and you'll see why in a second. Sareee versus Sky Blue. Look, listen, pal. I will tolerate a lot of nonsense in my pro wrestling. Okay, despite the fact that there's a lot of things that aggravate me. There's outright disliking and hating and going up to the barricades and screaming my discontent at the top of my lungs until my eyes get bloodshot red is something I don't typically do. But if Sareee loses to Sky Blue in the quarterfinals of this tournament, brother, I am going to be raging mad. I am going to be so mad. And this despite the fact that I find that for the past 2 weeks that Sky Blue's been better. There's no way she's going to be beating Sareee, right? Right? She can't. I think we're joking here, right? I think we're joking. Like, there's no way Sareee is losing to Sky Blue. That would be just like it's character assassination is what that would be. We'd be back to Sareee being Saray and being dressed up as the magical girl, the little Harry Potter magical girl, right? We'd be back to that. Can you imagine? And it hasn't even been that long ago. In WWE, they had Sareee, they had her in their midst. And all they could think of is, well, let's dress her up like a little Japanese and put her in a sailor suit and, hope for the best. That's all they could figure out to do with fucking Sareee. So it is possible right now that maybe some of you have never seen Sareee wrestle, and that's fine. I can understand that. And you're like, Warren, you're losing your shit over this wrestler. Is she that good? Yes, she is that good. The thing with Sareee is that she's such a good wrestler. She's intense. She's no nonsense, and she's violent. Her style is violence. And what I'm very curious to see is how this violence is handled in AEW with the women in AEW, because she's an extremely snug worker. And she doesn't hold back. So she's getting in the ring with Sky Blue. Is she going to be the devastating whirling dervish that she typically is, with these devastating strikes and these submissions where she just ties you up? Is she going to be double stomping her in the guts over and over again? Like, it's like this is. I wonder if that's what they're going to do with her. And at the same time, I'm like, this is what they have to do with her. Because that's what Sareee is. That's what makes Sareee special. It's not that she's not like this technical wizard like Zack Sabre Jr. This is a wrestler who hits hard, who hits extremely hard, who stretches the fuck out of their opponents. That's what needs to come across. That's what this first round has to communicate. that Sari is violent and unrelenting. So that's why I hope Athena is the person who advances into the semis, because Sari should beat Sky Blue and she should fight Athena, who Athena is also someone who hits hard and can take a punch, because Athena, when she's wrestling the Joshi in Japan, she looks like $1 million. And she knows exactly what she's doing. She's tremendous. And she can stand toe to toe with someone like Sari, and they can exchange strikes and whatnot, and it'll bring out the really aggressive side in Athena and vice versa. So that'll be a much more interesting, compelling semifinal, especially if they tell the story that Sari is a beast. So Sari is another wrestler that I think she needs a little warm up from the North American crowd. For the North American crowd, she needs to come in, wrestle a couple of matches on Dynamite, on Collision, get the crowd to know her, see how hard she fucking hits. Because if they tone it back, it's not going to work. It's like Julia. We've talked about Julia multiple times in the past. You know, going to NXT to WWE, why she doesn't feel special anymore, why doesn't Julia feel special anymore? Why does she feel like just another person on the roster and whatnot? And I like to joke to say, well, she's not throwing shoot headbutts anymore, which is, a bit of a joke, also a bit of the truth. But Julia's like sort of cut from the same cloth, where she's just like, she just hits people. She hits them for real. And that was and that was always the thing with Julia, is that you never know how hard she was going to go, how much shooting she was going to do. That was part of her mystique. That's what made Julia such an attraction for fans, where it's like, and some people hated her for that. I, on the other hand, was like, this is entertaining as hell, So if you neuter Sari's offense, well, then you're losing the thing that makes her interesting. So then you'll have people watching, let's say, a guy like Warren Hayes going, yeah, fuck yeah, Sari, let's go, type of thing. And then she hits the ring and she just does very tepid North American style offense. And then people will be like, well, what's the big deal with this girl? She's just like everyone else. What makes her so special? Why have all these nerds online gone nuts? She's very, very average. So Sari versus Athena is what I'd want for the semis. And then I want Willow versus Sari. That's my final. That's my final. I really fucking want that. Much more than Athena. I think Athena versus Willow, there's something there. I mean, they fought before. There's something there. But here, in this circumstance, in the Forbidden Door show, where you're supposed to mix up people from promotions, because that's going to be where what the final is going to be. Yeah, fuck yeah. Willow versus Sari, let's go. Let's fucking go. Give them 30 minutes on top of that. That's how I'd book it. See, this is true booking for the sickos. This is really booking for the real deal sickos. That'd be fun as hell. And then offer Sari a contract. I still want her to do her produce shows. But then again, if she wants to take money, all the more power to her. Anyway, look. Look, if you get Willow versus Sari at the end, I think then Willow would probably be the smartest pick, right? But the boldest pick would be Sari. And the boldest situation would be for Tekla to hold on to the title until All In, and you get Tekla versus Sari, and that would be absolutely nuts. You see, there's no real losing here. No one loses in Warren Hayes' scenarios here. Whether it's Willow or Sari, there's no real loser. I'm very excited at the prospect of the women's brackets. I think it could be a lot of fun. So my predictions are on the left side, Persephone over Hazuki and Willow over Alex Windsor. Semifinals have Willow over Persephone, so Willow goes to the finals. On the right side of the brackets, Athena over Mina Shirakawa and Sari over Sky Blue. In the semis, Sari goes over Athena, and then Sari then moves to the finals where she loses to Willow Nightingale, but there's no real bad choice here. There's no bad pick. It'd be crazy if we had some kind of deal set up with Sari, but I feel like she appreciates her freedom too much to do whatever she wants. And, you know, like, she's not representing Stardom. She doesn't wrestle for Stardom. She's a freelancer. She does whatever the fuck. Like, she'll show up to Stardom and do a tour there or two, and then she'll go off and do whatever the fuck. She's not representing Stardom. We'll see how it all comes together. But look, this is very, 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 very good brackets. Both sides. And very interesting. Two very different compositions. And I think someone pointed it out in the chat, where one is very story-based, the men's, and the women's is like more sports-based. It's more based on the action. There's no clear narratives here. The narratives will happen throughout the tournament, which is kind of how every tournament should go, really. Just have the narratives happen through the brackets and the matches themselves. It's good stuff. Very exciting stuff. Wait, where's Mercedes? I don't know. I don't think she'll be far behind. I think it's okay if she's not in the tournament this year. She won it last year. It's fine. Mercedes will be back sooner than later. TK wouldn't have brought Sari in if he didn't know her work. I just hope he gives these women a good time for these matches. Sari versus Sky Blue is the only match that should be less than 5 minutes. Sari needs to destroy Sky Blue. Like, if she's going to the finals, they have to position her as a devastating threat to Willow Nightingale. And the thing is that Sari is a tremendous heel. She's so good. Isn't Sari hurt? Well, she announced that she wasn't working the Marigold. She wasn't working the Marigold shows because she was going to be out for a month because of a neck injury. So, you know, the finals are at Forbidden Door. You can run these matches in a month. You don't have to start the Sari side of the bracket next week or the week after Double or Nothing. Or the theory that me and a couple of people in a group chat would prefer to believe, even though it's a stretch, but it would be a really funny stretch, is that she told Rossi Marigold that she had a crick in the neck and couldn't wrestle for a month for Marigold to get out of her dealings there and of her arrangements with Marigold to come and wrestle in AEW instead. That's the story I'd prefer. That's the one that I'd prefer to believe. But let's say, assuming that her injury is legitimate, and then she said she'd be out for a month, or they said she'd be out for a month. Look, sometimes you just got to do what's best for business and tell Rossi Ogawa to go fuck off and go find ways to take pictures of his athletes' feet. And by the way, I'm not saying that Sari did say that. We made up this scenario in our minds. It's just, we're shooting this shit. We're just being stupid. I'm definitely not saying, so please don't put in the papers that I said that Sari told Rossi Ogawa a lie to get out of her booking with Marigold. A report that came out today that says that AEW just has, quote unquote, real interest in bringing Mick Foley into the promotion. Read this article off of the Figure 4 Online Wrestling Observer. The takedown on SI reported today, per multiple sources, AEW expressed interest in working with Foley this year. It's not known if AEW would sign Foley to a contract or if his debut would just be a one-off appearance. Foley is currently under a WWE Legends deal, but won't be renewing when the deal expires next month, to taking issue with the close relationship WWE has with President Donald Trump. This is a quote from the article. Multiple sources tell the takedown that AEW has expressed real interest in working with Foley this year, though the capacity of which is not known. It was also not certain whether or not the organization would be interested in signing the 60-year-old or if it would simply be an appearance. Though he's currently under the WWE Legends deal, Foley has made recent appearances for OVW and GCW. A source told the Takedown on SI that they wouldn't be surprised if Foley showed up at AEW Double or Nothing later this month. The pay-per-view is being held in Foley's home state of New York, and Long Island native MJF is putting his hair on the line against AEW World Champion Darby Allin at the event. Here's another quote from the SI article. One source indicated that while they did not have any direct knowledge of Foley coming in for the show at this time, they would not be surprised if there was a push to use him on it if a deal could get done. The extent of any conversation between the parties beyond the initial inquiry is also unknown. Double or Nothing is being held at Louis Armstrong Stadium in Queens on Sunday, May 24, which, by the way, is almost sold out. When Foley was considering coming out of retirement for one last match in celebration of his 60th birthday in 2025, MJF was the opponent he wanted to face. But Foley called off any plans for an in-ring return after suffering a concussion while doing light training in 2024. Foley has multiple Hollywood projects in the work at the moment, including a limited series that's in development where actor-wrestler Paul Walter Hauser is attached to play the hardcore legend. Foley also has done voiceover work for A24's upcoming Deathmatch documentary. I have often told you all that I don't operate under a pretense that I am objective and completely unbiased. I told you before that I don't believe that in reviewing, whether it be wrestling matches or movies or literature, I don't think there is a thing as being completely objective and unbiased. I think it's something that is impossible for humans to do, because all humans come with natural biases, just off of the fact of where you were born, your economic status, your gender. There are inherent things that define you, that create a natural bias within you. And you can reinforce biases as you get older and whatnot, but that's a whole other thing. Don't want to get too much into this, but I hope no one expects Warren Hayes to be 100% fair and objective. I have my likes and my dislikes, and I've never really hidden that either. When it comes to Mick Foley, I have a very positive bias towards him. He's one of my favorite all-time wrestlers, bar none, just from Cactus Jack through Mankind, through the Three Faces of Foley. Mick was always perfectly used in the time he was in WWE, particularly the Attitude Era, which was always, the Attitude Era. He offered up something extremely different that was very refreshing. I like Mick a lot. I've read his books, not his fiction as well. I've had a chance to talk to the guy. I know the guy. He's when I say I know him, like we're not like best pals or buddies, but I've known him. He is a legitimately good human being. So the idea of Mick Foley going to find work in a major wrestling, major American wrestling promotion, brings me happiness. I am legitimately happy for him. Sometimes I'll say, this guy who was recently fired found a job, and I'm very happy that they were able to find work. I'm happy they found work, but it's not like, oh man, that's such good news. But in this circumstance, I am legitimately, truly, profoundly happy if Mick Foley can come out of the mothballs and maybe he himself sort of decide to end his career on his terms instead of just, being tucked away by WWE on a Legends contract and being brought out whenever it's significant for them. Because this is a man who destroyed his body and ruined his quality of life for the wrestling business. I think it is absolutely okay for Mick Foley to find a job and work in the business for whom he has sacrificed so much. I legitimately believe that. Now, if he were to come in to AEW, again, the question is, what do you do with him, right? What's the thing that we do with Mick Foley moving forward? I've seen a lot of people online tossing out all sorts of ideas, and mostly being, authority figure. He could be the commissioner. He could be the GM. And I'm like, yuck, hack. No. Like, why would we bring back this guy to play a role that he's done before and that will probably be so hacky and contrived that it won't be interesting? I'm not into that. I'm not into it. And again, like it also connects with another feeling that I have when it comes to coming up with, creative ideas in pro wrestling. When in AEW specifically, is like, just be different than WWE. Don't do what WWE does. Do something else. Like, they have their authority figures right now. They have Adam Pearce. They have fucking Nick Aldis. What does that add to the program? What is that adding that is so important and significant for the show that they absolutely need that? They're authority figures. Who gives a fuck? How much was the show enhanced by having, Constable Baron Corbin being the guy running the thing? Or Bad News Barrett, or just go down the line of all these fucking Michael Cole when he was doing the thing with the anonymous Raw GM, all this fucking bullshit. The authority in it about itself. Like, you couldn't have more on the nose than that. Why would we try to bring that to AEW, where AEW is doing fine without an authority figure, without any of these hacky stories? They tried doing it with the Bucks, but my main complaint with the Bucks doing that was that it would create plot holes and story problems, and it did. It created inconsistencies and breaks in logic. It didn't make sense. It made sense for them to be in control for the couple of weeks that Tony Khan was out with the neck brace. But when Tony Khan returned and they were still calling the shots, I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then Tony Khan had to send out Christopher Daniels to sort of butt heads with the Bucks. I'm like, what are we even doing? Tony, this is your company. Fire these schmucks. Get rid of them. Assert control. What's going on? Tony Khan right now is the authority figure, and he exists as an invisible authority figure within the confines of week-to-week storytelling and kayfabe. And Tony shows up at the shows before and after the shows to get the crowd hype, and then to thank them for coming, and then promising them not promising a pay-per-view, but saying, we might come back maybe for a pay-per-view, type of thing. And then he goes home. I think it's fine that he's not an on-screen character, and we should keep it that way. And he doesn't need a right-hand man to do it, especially since it's been established in AEW canon that Tony Khan makes his shots and calls them directly to commentary. Like, he'll talk directly to Bryan Danielson or to Tony Schiavone, and then they'll pick up a house mic and go, I just got word from Tony Khan and MJF, you will be defending your title tonight, type of thing, So he doesn't need a figure on screen to do it, because he's already the authority figure. And besides, why are we even trying to break this down? Don't do it in the first place. Just don't do it. What are we doing? Why am I trying to break this down like it's something where it's like, no, we need to. No, they suck, okay? Authority figure angles suck. Don't do it. And you can find, I'm sure, something much more interesting and creative for Mick Foley to do. Mick's a creative guy. There's like 30 creative people in AEW, put these heads together and figure something out. And it doesn't have to be the laziest way to go about it and just, oh, well, no, he'll be the Dynamite commissioner. He'll be the Collision commissioner. We don't need any of that. We really don't. We really don't. And besides, like, the question is out there. Would it be like for a real deal, or would it be for a one-off appearance or a limited appearance? What have I been talking about for the past, I think this is the third time I speak about it, like, this year. Talked about it, for AJ Styles. Talked about it for the New Day. Now we're going to talk about it for Mick Foley. We could do a limited contract. It doesn't have to be a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year deal. It could be for a set amount of time. A year, 8 months, 6 months, but you have the end date. You know when, you know that as of this moment right here, Mick Foley's gone. So then you can plan exactly what you want to do with him. And knowing that this is the out point, well, you book backwards from that. You decide what you want to do on the last date, and then you book backwards so that everything connects and everything leads in, and then you have a nice little send-off or whatever. It doesn't have to be like this long-term thing, especially with a guy like Foley. Limited in the ring. I mean, he was doing some light training, like he said, and got a concussion. The idea of MJF fighting, like MJF giving Mick Foley his last match would be tremendous because Max would know exactly what to do. Max would be a great opponent, but his brain is soup. That's the unfortunate part. Like, the CTE is real in his case. So does he want to get in there and risk worse? Because it could get worse. Is that what you want to do? I don't think. What can you do with Mick Foley? 60-year-old Mick Foley has been concussed numerous times. That every bone in his body has been shattered at some point. Who's not in shape? He's not in wrestling shape, What do you do? And I say this lovingly, not in a spiteful way, in a way where I'm trying to express concern by just having like the realest talk possible. So what do you do with Mick Foley? Listen, I don't know. I really, honestly, frankly, do not know. And I'm sure there's a bunch of people going, who cares? I don't want Mick Foley. That doesn't bring anything to the table, doesn't move me. And I understand. But it moves me. It moves me. The best that I guess I can wish for is that whatever they decide to do with Mick, if he ends up going to AEW, is that they do something that will end up honoring his legacy in pro wrestling. Because WWE will never do that. But man, if you've never seen 1990s Cactus Jack, you're missing out on some of the most fun pro wrestling ever. Mick was so good, and he was doing things that maybe are a little more old hat today because he was a pioneer in that front. But the fact that he was doing this so early in the 90s, dropping himself off the apron and doing all sorts of, it's spectacular stuff. People paid attention to how crazy this guy was. And he's a trailblazer. He's an imitator. Like, he's a guy who's been imitated multiple times. It's influenced so many people. He's influenced so much wrestling, so many people. WWE would never give him the proper time of day because that's, it doesn't connect with how they're presenting their product. Because there's something a little dirty about Cactus Jack and how he did his things, wrestling in Japan, for Anita and whatnot, and the bloody brawls that he had with Terry Funk, and then wrestling in ECW and whatnot. And that's the other thing too, is that Mick Foley is not a WWE only guy. He's wrestled everywhere. He's wrestled every major North American promotion except AEW. He's been everywhere. So that's another thing where they're kind of like, oh, let's pump the brakes on this. Plus, he doesn't fit the type that WWE want on television anymore. Whereas I look at Mick Foley and it's like, this is a pro wrestler. You know, one of the things that Vince successfully did is warp our perception of what a pro wrestler looks like, or what a pro wrestler is supposed to look like, right? Chiseled, well-built, you know, hairless, you know, all of that. Whereas in reality, for the longest time, the pro wrestlers came in all sorts of body types, all sorts. Mick didn't stand apart because he was a little pudgier than fucking Lex Luger, you know. He didn't stand out because of that. It was more like, hey, he's just, you know, this guy's a brawler. You know, this is, you know, he's not the epitome of the epitome. He's not the epitome of peak human physical condition. He's a guy who goes, you know, this is a guy, you know, who fucking bleeds for a living, throws himself off his shit, does wild shit, you know? So it's like, you know, I fucking love Mick Foley. I think he's tremendous. So do I think he should go to AEW? Yeah. Yes. If only for, like I said, if only because Mick Foley should be working, making a living in the business for which he completely destroyed his quality of life. I think he absolutely deserves to be working in some capacity. Will he be able to wrestle? Well, not from what we understand, but I don't know. We'll just have to see how things go. Of course, these are all reports at this point that there is real interest. That doesn't mean he's coming in. We're far from it at this point. But yeah, no, to close up my point, yeah, that's the one. What? Look, this is another guy who would gladly like to close out his career on his own terms in AEW. And AEW would not shy away from presenting Mick Foley as a guy who has been all around the world, who's wrestled in all these promotions, who has had a career that has spanned, what, 40 years at this point? I'm terrible at math. You know, easily 30 plus 40-year career. You know, they wouldn't just be focused on one promotion. They'd be like, no, this is how great this guy was. He's been everywhere. He's been absolutely everywhere. And Tony would love this kind of shit too. You know, Tony Khan would love this. It's the kind of shit that he's like, yeah, this is the unsung mission that Tony likes to. This is the unsung mission that Tony has for himself, and that is to preserve pro wrestling, to give pro wrestling another voice outside of the one that is controlled by this one company that is only looking out for its own assets and whatnot. I may have talked a lot about it, but look, I like Mick Foley. I like him a lot. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Kristen can attest that he's a sweet guy. I am looking forward to seeing him in AEW. Even though this is all conjecture, I'm looking forward to it. And I hope they come up with some good ideas. That's all. What are some good ideas, Warren? Hey, listen, they want my good ideas. They can pay me. They can put me on the calls. And Mick Foley here's the thing. Mick Foley should be remembered for his contributions outside of falling off of a fucking cage. He should be remembered for more than just that spot. But if you leave it up to WWE, that's always what they're going to bring back. The cage spot, then falling through the cage, and then turning to the camera with his tooth in his nose. That's how WWE wants you to remember Mick Foley. I'm sorry. There's too many layers to that. He's wrestled in too many places. He's been significant in too many spots. He's wrestled everywhere. Everywhere. He's been in every major promotion. How many wrestlers can say that? All right, let's review Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor 2026, which happened on May 15, 2026, over there in Salisbury, Maryland at the Wicomico Youth and Civic Center. This Ring of Honor pay-per-view is absolutely a wrestling show that happened in the history of professional wrestling. This is a show that I don't think was bad, like not a bad wrestling show per se, but one that had me bored for the majority of the match. And I think that's much more of a cardinal sin than just just doing things that are outright bad, because then you're like, you're feeling something. You're feeling anger and rage and disappointment and whatnot. Whereas when you're bored, you just want it to end. You just want this to be put out of its misery, and so that we can all move on with our lives. Look, it's a show that refused to change gears until we got to the business end, like the 3 last matches of the show. They dragged this entire show across the finish line. And it was a show that was, by all means stacked. There was 8 title matches. You had a pure match, that was a special singles match, I guess. And somehow all of this landed in the same flat register of competent enough on paper, yet completely inert in the room. And I heard some people talking about how bad the crowd was, the crowd's not into this, what's going on? No, the crowd was good because they were reacting when there were things to actually react to. When the show actually got good and exciting and things were actually happening, that crowd was on its feet cheering. They were chanting, fight forever and this is awesome. But for the majority of the show, they weren't doing that because they weren't given things to do that, to chant for, to get excited about. It's crazy to me just how, the word is flat, how incredibly flat everything on this show felt, again, until we got towards the final stretch of the show. Everything was just happening and felt like lifeless. It's just like people going through the motions, having perfectly acceptable / competent pro wrestling matches. And look, when I started the review, when I sat down, opened up my notes, got ready to slap record here, I promised myself that I wouldn't spend too much time on this review because of the output, because of what happened, because ultimately, and I talked about this on Thursday on stream when I previewed the pay-per-view. I refuse to care more about Ring of Honor than its own promoter does. This is the vibe that I'm getting out of Ring of Honor that I've been getting for a while now, is that Tony Khan has just lost interest in Ring of Honor. This card feels like he's slapping matches together, just throwing them all out on a card and then going, all right, my quarterly Ring of Honor obligations are done. Let's move on and stuff, right? And so if I'm not feeling that care, why would I sit here and care more about Ring of Honor than the promoter does? And I think that's valid, because I know there's a lot of Ring of Honor watchers, obviously, who don't feel the same way I do. They're invested. I don't know how. I don't know how you're invested in Ring of Honor, quite frankly, because it doesn't have the special touch of care. It doesn't feel like there's someone who is legitimately putting in the effort to create something good on a week-to-week basis. It doesn't come across as that. And I think that's to, of course, the detriment of the viewers, of people watching, but I also think it's a detriment to the wrestlers who are there. The wrestlers who, for all intents and purposes, are people that Tony Khan has signed, who have even previously been on AEW or still like flip-flop between the two, and clearly don't have anything to do on All Elite Wrestling, on the main AEW shows. And Tony, instead of just outright releasing them or having them sit around, they're like, no, like either have them do things in Ring of Honor, like Sammy Guevara, for instance, or have talent that could use a little more work, a few more reps, get their footing going, right, and put them on Ring of Honor so that they can continue to work their craft, get paid, and maybe eventually do return to AEW, right? Like, that's, to me, that's the most egregious part, is that the promoter doesn't really seem to care. So from week to week, there's never any buzz. There's no interest in Ring of Honor. There's no one going around extolling the virtues of it. It's a niche thing for hardcores who seem to think that, the promotion is, I don't want to say can do no wrong, but that it's better than it actually is. And I don't know what the blind spot is, but look, I don't want to sound like I'm being condescending towards people who enjoy the Ring of Honor program. Look, everything is so freaking subjective in the universe that we live in. If you enjoy the Ring of Honor, all the more power to you. But I sat here last night. I'm recording this on Saturday. I sat down in my living room, pulled up the app and watched the show, and I was thoroughly unimpressed. I was bored out of my team. I watched the show and I'm like, oh, well, look at the moment the show started getting good. It's when the AEW regulars started showing up. When Mark Davis showed up, when Bandito showed up. Hell, let's throw the Outrunners in there as well. Once these people started showing up, suddenly the card took a different turn. That's not necessarily a vote of confidence. That's not necessarily something where I'm like, okay, yes, Ring of Honor has all the stars, and I should be locked in every week. And ultimately, the people who suffer from this are the talent, because they keep performing in front of an extremely limited pool of viewership. Don't fool yourselves. If the Ring of Honor Club specifically was a success, well, we'd be hearing about it. Tony Khan would be crowing about it. There'd be things going on, but it's not. They don't have the subscriptions. They don't have the subscribers. And it's wild because this is the same Ring of Honor that under Tony Khan, not all that long ago, was producing extremely good pay-per-views. That we'd have the pay-per-views and everyone would go, holy shit, another great pay-per-view from Ring of Honor. Even if you didn't watch the weeklies, even if the weeklies weren't great, you'd at least have some kind of assurance that you'd sit down and watch the Ring of Honor pay-per-view and go, hot damn, this thing was excellent. It's under Tony Khan's watch that the Briscoe FTR matches happen, right? Claudio and Eddie Kingston was also another highlight. That was so many great matches have happened in Ring of Honor under Tony Khan as part of the Tonyverse, I guess. But I feel like there's been a turn that's happened. There's been a sharp turn, and Ring of Honor just lacks any kind of buzz, any kind of prestige, any kind of excitement. I don't know who's tuning in. I don't know why they're tuning in. I'll tell you one thing: they're not tuning in for Athena's. 1,000+ day reign, right? I think someone was telling me last night that she's about to surpass Roman Reigns' legendary run with the WWE Championship, Universal Championship, whatever it was. Undisputed. Who cares? What am I doing here? The Roman Reigns run, she's about to overcome it like in July or something like that, right? And that's a nice little, it's a nice little milestone for a kayfabe accomplishment. Like, it's like, okay, that adds something, but, it's the only through line that has existed that is exclusively a Ring of Honor thing. And it's the only thing people talk about outside of Ring of Honor. It's the only thing that's ever discussed, that's ever brought up this reign. And yet, we're not flocking by the thousands to subscribe to the channel to see this legendary run, because all of the opponents are the Ring of Honor people. And Athena can be hit or miss sometimes in her matches and within her matches. Sometimes they're very, very good. Sometimes they're great. And sometimes you're like, well, what did I just watch? Type of thing. This was fine, I guess, She's very hit or miss, and this situation now exists. This comprehension exists. This interminable reign, this so-called legendary reign, is doing nothing for business. And in fact, I think we're at a point where Even Ring of Honor watchers are bored of it. I know for sure that people who hop in for the pay-per-views are kind of done with it as well. I think there was a lot of people who were hoping / expecting Athena to drop the title last night. That didn't happen. And ultimately, I think this is hurting Athena now. Now I think this is just like Athena has been doing the exact same thing for the past 3 years. It's been the same thing. If there was anyone who was in dire need of a change of environment, change of pace, something different to do, it is her. And I'm not just talking, oh, she should be on AEW. I'm talking change of environment. Anything at this point. If her contract comes up and she says, I'm going to go try myself back in WWE and see what happens this time around, all the more power to her. She's got to try anything else at this point. I think it's starting to hurt her. I think people are just starting to get fed up of Athena and her shenanigans. And yet, this is the thing that has defined the promotion for 3 years straight. For 3 years straight, this has been the glue, the thing that is supposed to create the excitement and anticipation for weekly Ring of Honor TV. But we're essentially it's essentially like the bloodline thing where Paul Heyman says, "Oh, we're in the bottom of the third inning," but are we still in the bottom of the third inning with Athena? Because it sure feels that way. Because I don't see any level of progression. I don't see how anything's going to advance or change. I don't see any indications that they're looking to do something different. And that's a problem. But how we sometimes say, when Tony makes a lot of decisions because he gets a lot of data from Nielsen and all of his streaming data, and he's looking at it and he's making decisions, and sometimes you're like, oh, well, why is this person being pushed, or why are we doing this here and there? And the basic answer is like, well, Tony gets all the data, so he's making decisions on that front. Whereas, is this the same thing with Athena? Does he have like a stack of very granular data that demonstrates that Athena is the reason people are subscribing to Honor Club? Is she selling, tons of merch that other people just wouldn't be able to do? Like, is she like the reason why this whole promotion is afloat still? Maybe, like, that's the thing, is like maybe there is this data that exists, and Tony's like, now we're going to keep doing this because it's the only thing that's working, Anyway, here I was saying I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but one more thing before we actually get to the card, just to support to continue to support my theory that there is that Tony Khan has lost interest, doesn't care as much for Ring of Honor as maybe he once did. The proof here that I have in that regard is the fact that we built on this pay-per-view, we built a bunch of matches for AEW Collision that's airing tonight on Saturday. There were a bunch of angles and things happening on a Ring of Honor pay-per-view that served to build matches for another promotion's B show. Whereas the opposite never happens. It never happens. There is no longer. How did you find out that there was a pay-per-view this weekend that there was a Ring of Honor pay-per-view this weekend? It wasn't by listening to AEW Dynamite. They didn't mention it a single time. They haven't been promoting this at all. Why? I don't know. The only reason that I have is because, all of the smooth-brained, pissy little babies out there on Twitter with their blue check marks convinced Tony that doing cross-promotion was a bad idea because their brains couldn't be bothered to understand that cross-promotion between brands is a thing that could happen. But, for some reason, this was detrimental and a bad thing for the promotion. And yet, I think you can make a direct correlation between the interest that was generated for Ring of Honor a couple of years ago versus now. You can make the correlation between the two as to the exact moment when AEW stopped promoting Ring of Honor on AEW programming. I think you could, if someone wanted to dive into that and pull up the data and give some examples and do some cross-referencing and whatnot, I am convinced that you can find a direct correlation between the two. So if Tony really did have that care, that sentiment of care for Ring of Honor, like he does with AEW, well, then we would see the cross promotion, because we did that on a pay-per-view last night. We did cross promotion, but from the small promotion to the big one, and you should be doing the opposite. Like, we're not drawing new viewers from Ring of Honor to AEW. There is a fair chance, an extremely high percentage of people who are watching Ring of Honor who are already AEW watchers. There's such a high percentage of that. You're not gaining any new viewers by doing that, but you could be gaining new viewers for Ring of Honor if you talked about it and promoted it a little more on Dynamite. Anyway, look, I've said everything I needed to say in that regard. We should get to the matches, and we're going to start from the top and work our way down, because the most that I have to say is in regards to like the top 3 matches, maybe 4, and then the rest I don't have much to add. There's like I said, this should not be an extremely long review, but you know, famous last words, am I right? Athena, she won a survival of the fittest match to retain the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship. She defeated Yuka Sakazaki, Trish Adora, Billy Starks, Maya World, and Xia Steele. Okay, so I've said my piece about the Athena thing. No use in harping about that. Look, what we will talk about is the Billy Starks situation, the Billy Starks story that they've been telling for the better part of 3 years at this point. They've been telling the story for 3 years that Billy feels disrespected, you know, and crapped on. She bullied essentially by Athena, but yet she always goes back to Athena. You think they're going to split up. They don't, you know, it's a will they, won't they type of situation. And they fought twice. This is technically like the 3rd main event that these people have shared with each other. And a lot of people thought that the first time that Athena took on Billy Starks, that should have been the moment where Billy Starks won the title. And it didn't happen. So we went to the second time, and then a lot of people thought that was going to happen there, and it didn't. And then a lot of people thought it was going to happen here, and it didn't again. So it is more than a shit off the pot type of situation. It's time to just, you either go for it or you abandon it. Like, you know, it's not even a question as to whether or not you want shit or get off the pot when it comes to Billy Starks. It's just this whole angle, this whole nonsense, like the whole thing that goes on in between. Like, are we going to are we going to do something with this? Is this going to lead somewhere, or should we just like completely forget about it? Because here's one thing that's important to point out. You know, Billy Starks, 3 years ago, right? You know, someone brought this up last night in discussions, and I completely agree. She was not ready to be main eventing shows. Like, you know, in her capacity, the level of talent that she had reached, or the level of development, I should say. That's talent is the whole thing, but the level of development that she had gotten, she should have been in a position. She shouldn't have been in a position, I should say, to, you know, be the top woman in AEW's Ring of Honor's women's division, because she just was not ready. She just was not there developmentally. During the second match, well, it was evident that she wasn't again. And tonight, well, when I say tonight, last night for this match here, she wasn't ready again. She showed that. She showed that she's just not on that level of being someone who can carry a division and have great main event matches. The women's title in Ring of Honor main events most pay-per-views. And do you think Billy Starks is capable of doing that? Especially after last night's performance? Folks, I saw people on social media talking about this, saying, hey, you know what, Billy Starks, I think she's regressed. She doesn't look as good. And this is correct. She is not improving. She hasn't improved in a long while. She is not getting any better. I thought she stunk last night. I thought she was the weakest link. She was absolutely the weakest link in the entire setup I even thought Zeta Steele, who did close to nothing in the match because she was eliminated within the first couple of minutes, I thought she brought more to the match than Billy Starks did, and she was there for the entirety, and even the fucking angle and post-match angle and all of that. So if creative for this Athena Billy Starks thing is that they are going to be at odds, and eventually Billy Starks is going to overtake Athena. If this is the creative, if this is the long-term plan, it needs to be thrown out. Because if we're not doing it now, we are never going to do it. This is just not going to happen. And I can understand why they're deciding not to do it, because Billy is not up for the task. That's just a clear observation. Hell, people who are generally very, very positive on social media were saying this. I saw a couple of posts where people who never deliver any kind of criticism, especially towards wrestlers, are like, yeah, you know what? Looks like she's regressed. Look, you want to say regressed? I'm going to say that she's still the same. She's still the same as she was 3 years ago. So what are we even doing? What's the issue? So this is what I mean when I say it's more than a shit or get off the pot situation with Billy. It's more like, why are we continuing to push this angle if it becomes clear at some point that you are never going to make this happen because you clearly don't have faith in Billy Starks to be the woman to guide the division. You clearly don't. So just trash the whole thing. Stop mentioning it. Let's not have it happen ever again, or have Athena beat her once definitively, and we move on with our fucking lives. And we just try to do something else. But this might be tied into my idea that Tony Khan doesn't give his promotion enough care. Because if he saw what was going on, if he really took interest, he probably could have reversed course 2 years ago, 18 months ago. Stop doing this angle that is not going to have a satisfying payoff, that is not going to leave the promotion in a good place. Now, you can argue with me as much as you like. Well, but the story makes sense though for this to happen. Sure, I'm sure it does. But what counts ultimately is what happens in the ring. And if Billy is not there or ready or able to do the heavy lifting, and everyone is kind of aware of it, which is why we're 3 Athena versus Billy Starks matches in, and she still hasn't beaten her over 3 fucking years, then maybe this is a signal that, oh, you know what? Yeah, we shouldn't have confidence, because the audience confidence is eroding as well. Look, that fucking post-match angle that they did with Athena winning, which got 0 reaction, because everyone was like, oh shit, here we go again. And then Billy crying, and then Athena bullying her, come on, pick yourself up by the bootstraps. And then Diamante's there, and, egging this type of behavior on. No reaction. No one cared. No one cares. Because at this point, we're like, yeah, well, this is it. At some point, if the story is that Billy Starks keeps going back to get beaten down and pushed down again, and then she starts crying about it, well, she's a grown woman who can make her own decisions. Now, I understand what they're trying to say. I understand what they're trying to do here, where it's, an abusive relationship, and, Athena is a manipulator and, does things to get what she wants, and, always seems to sweet talk Billy into coming back. Like, I understand the undertones of it. I know what they're trying to do, but this is also fiction, and most importantly, it's pro wrestling, right? Which is just supposed to be inherently dopey for, we shouldn't be necessarily investigating very, very deep and complex themes such as these. At some point, it does become, well, Billy, what are we supposed to do now? You're not helping yourself. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to cheer for you if you're not helping yourself. You know what I mean? Like, like there's a difference if you want to explore these themes within the confines of a dramatic television show with dramatic writing, with excellent actors and great writers and a good director who are able to pull out all the nuance and the subtleties and make you understand and feel the conflict here and eventually get to some kind of resolution, which would probably be a bittersweet one if done properly. But this is pro wrestling. This is pro wrestling. We shouldn't be investigating these types of themes. It's not the spot for that, because it diminishes whatever real life situations happen. Look, it's not the spot to explore these things. Anyway, I'm already going too far. I'm going too far. But I'm not gonna cut anything out. I'm gonna leave it in. But I've already gone too far in how I feel about this whole thing. We really didn't have to go down this road, but look, here we are. So I thought Billy was the weakest link in a match where I thought everyone worked hard. Like I thought everyone worked hard in this match. And that's why ultimately, despite the fact where I'm like, okay, well, it's survival of the fittest match. Let's go, and then the plunder starts happening. Zeta Steel pulls out a chair, and everyone's like, commentary's like, can she do that? Can she do that? And then apparently, yes. Apparently now it's an ODQ hardcore match, a plunder match. I'm like, oh, really? Really? Is this what I'm gonna sit down and watch? And it wasn't bad. There was some good spots. There really were some very good spots in this match. Athena's bump on the chairs was kind of preposterous. That was a very good spot. Just like there was things that defied logic at the same time, and commentary was right with me. When Trish Adora, when she lands the Lariat Tubman on Athena and she's in the ring with Yuka Sakazaki, there's the three of them and Yuka Sakazaki is right there. And instead of going to pin the champion and ensure that there's going to be a new champion, Yuka and Trish go after each other, and I'm like, what is this logic? What are we doing? Like the Lariat Tubman is the finisher. Just cover and go 1, 2, 3. Why are we going after Yuka Sakazaki? Who gives a shit? Like, Yuka's not going to break up the pin. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't. I didn't. That was a moment where I'm kind of like, this doesn't make sense, and it didn't help my immersion in the match. Let's put it that way. But I thought Yuka looked fine. I thought Trish Adora looked very good. She was very, very good in this match. Zeta Steel, I am turning. The tides are turning in regards to my opinion of her. I had a very low perception of her because I believe the first time I saw her was in a multi-person match in Marigold a couple of years ago when Marigold just started, and I thought she stunk. Now I feel like she's improved. I feel like she's someone who has the goods. How much goods does she have? I don't know, but she has the goods. I think she can be someone in pro wrestling. We'll just have to see what kind of decisions she makes, what happens with her, and so on and so forth. But I'm turning positive in regards to Zeta Steel, even though the performance here was very short. Just stuff that I've seen from her in the lead up, I'm like, oh, you know what? I think there might be something here. She's very interesting. And Maya World is great. Maya World was the shining star of this match. Not far behind was Trish Adora. I thought they were both very good, but Maya World obviously was in the match for a longer time and got a lot more stuff in. Look, she's special. I was very excited when she came in with Hyan, and they both have been doing things that hurt the brand since then. But she's been fantastic, and I would assume that Tony Khan realizes this, that he sees that he's got a legitimate, exciting new prospect. He's got her. She's right there with him. There's a lot he could do with Maya World. I personally think there's a very high ceiling for her. I'm excited to see what the future holds. Anyway, this is a 3.5 star match. Ultimately, that was really. I was ready to go lower, but the I was ready to go lower. But then I was thinking about there was a lot of good work, and I can't just focus on the stuff with Billy Starks and which I think wasn't very good. Like her instincts are completely off. She was giving this softest of strikes with chairs and whatnot. She's not good. She's not very good. So I can't let that drag everything down, because I think there was a lot of work that was done here. 3.5 stars here. Oh wait, I forgot to mention the most lukewarm spot of the match. Like she couldn't even manage to make the towel spot look good. It's pro wrestling. You have the towel and you go, ugh. She was just holding it there, without any grip, without any intensity to it. She's just holding it there very softly. And I'm like, look, come on. It's like, I don't know. And I talked about the Athena thing. I got nothing more to add here. Let's move on to the match before that, which was, by no surprise, the match of the night. Bandito successfully retained the Ring of Honor world title against Blake Christian, which was an excellent match. It was pretty much what you expected out of these two guys. The show needed this match, and it was the only match that really delivered on the level of a Ring of Honor pay-per-view. I love the limb psychology throughout as well. The finishing stretch, I thought, was terrific, with all of the near falls and the big moves. And you've got you've got Blake Christian. He's exhausted. He's kind of out of gas, and then he starts landing some kicks to get back into it. He hits a clothesline by Bandito, and then we get a 21 plex attempt, but Blake kicks out, lands a kick. Then he lands the lethal injection. But gets in, or he goes for the lethal injection, then eats the X knee by Bandito, and then he falls flat on his stomach. And that's where then Bandito does like the finishing 21 plex. Like there's two variations of the 21 plex now. The dopey one where the guy is holding, bent over on the ropes. That Bandito, it's been about a month and a half now that Bandito, when he's been using that, it never ends the match. Where it used to end the match was his finisher. Now it never ends the match. The 21 plex version that works, that finishes the match every time, is when he deadlifts the guy who is flat on his stomach instead, which I think we all prefer, because it looks much more natural than a guy hanging on the ropes waiting for the other guy to run the ropes and do his gimmick. I thought Christian was excellent here. I think like he wrestled a championship level match here. I posted that on Blue Sky, and I want to put this down here verbatim. He wrestled a championship level match here. The Avalanche Poison Rana, the Springboard 450. Like he's just doing all sorts of great stuff, and he's crisp and he's good, and his heel work is tremendous. He's such a smarmy smug little bastard, right? He's so good at it, and then he cheats throughout the match. Of course, he's there with Jay Lethal and Lee Johnson, and they get expelled because they're trying to interfere. But, he still brings in the belt, and he low blows and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, he's very good. He's very, very good. If you ask me, I would have taken the title off of Bandito here. But then again, I'm also assuming that there's a tie-in with Swerve, that Swerve might end up being the Ring of Honor World Champion. And I don't know how the smooth-brained piss babies are going to deal with this when an AEW guy, a prominent AEW guy, is made Ring of Honor World Champion, and he's going to come to the ring with the belt. I don't know how they're going to handle that, but, Yeah, I mean, look, this is a 4-star match. I thought it was excellent. Both guys worked extremely hard, and they got the crowd into it. There was some really good drama. Bandito doing his gorilla. I'm thinking of the spots here as we're going along, but he does the gorilla press, but Blake slides out into a triangle, And then Bandito sort of lifts the triangle into the powerbomb. I thought that was really good. And here's a great example. Talking about how good he was, how good Blake Christian was being a heel. There's this one moment where, he knocks down Bandito and he goes up to the top rope, assuming to do a 450 splash, right? But Bandito rolls out of the way all the way to the other corner, right? And the audience going clap, 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 clap. And they're like, yeah, smart man, Bandito. Blake Christian is like, this motherfucker. He jumps down from his perch on the top turnbuckle, walks all the way to Bandito, and he beats the piss out of his knee. He just like torques the fucking shit out of it. He punishes him for rolling out of the way. And I'm like, yes, this rocks. This was it was such a small thing, but I'm like, this exactly. You should be mad and you should make him regret it for doing that. It was look, tremendous work. It really, really was an excellent match that I do recommend. But yeah, a low end recommendation. I'm not like something where it's like drop everything and go watch this match, but a good an excellent match that if you have the time, please go right ahead and enjoy it. I mean, it's the best. It is the best match on the show. That's clear. And then after the match, well, Swerve Strickland showed up because we gotta boost the AEW. We gotta promote AEW on Ring of Honor, and the opposite doesn't happen. And he basically takes out Bandito, does a vertebreaker on Bandito on a chair, which was a crazy ass spot because Bandito really landed on his neck. I mean, it ultimately it was safely done, but the way it looks, you're like, holy shit, he may have killed the guy. And then you have the doctors who come in to check on him. And then I'm starting to wonder, is this going to have implications on AEW for their match at Double or Nothing? Because it's the first round of the Owen Hart Cup. Is this going to be a factor, or is Bandito even going to make it, type of thing? So, we'll see how things go. Hopefully, we still get the match at. We still get the match at Double or Nothing. But yeah, look, people love this match, and Bandito is such a lovable babyface. Like, he's got the perfect babyface energy. He does moves. He goes and celebrates in the crowd. He hugs kids. People love Bandito, and I can absolutely understand Tony Khan deciding to try to make Bandito a top guy. I can absolutely understand that. Like, I think he's 100% in that vibe. I think he gets the reactions from the crowd that warrant that. I think people naturally cheer for him. He's got the babyface underdog energy on top of that. I'd probably push him too. The thing is that there might be other guys that I'd push before, but I'd give him a shot. The crowd fucking loves Bandito, and that's all to his credit because he is a very, very good babyface. We also had Mark Davis successfully retaining the AEW national title against Jawa, who came over from CMLL to do this, and I was very excited for this match, and I'm very happy with how this match went. I thought it was tremendous. I thought it was so much fun. Where it's like it was a hard-hitting match, good and hard-hitting, real like strong energy with the the old school lucha background feeling to it, because Jelwa, as they mentioned on commentary, and everyone has to mention it every time he shows up. He's a throwback to the old beefy luchadors, right? As opposed to this, to the thin, wiry ones like Mascara Dorada and Neon and Commander. He's more of a throwback. So you're like, okay, well, how is there's going to be like some physicality to this, and there was. But then on top of that, you got Jelwa, who's doing his grappling, and he's twisting Mark Davis around, and it's like, this is so much fun. And again, this was at a time in the show where I'm like, oh God, I just want stuff to happen. I just want something that I can sink my teeth into. And it's just good, no nonsense, physical wrestling that made a lot of sense, a clash of styles to a degree where it's not like Jelwa was fighting from beneath. Like they did establish the fact that Davis is a big burly guy, so Jelwa being a little smaller, but not that all smaller, had trouble lifting Mark Davis, because just Davis is naturally taller and whatnot. But he does eventually do it, and that got a big reaction from the crowd because that's what you like. And Jelwa at some point he snaps on a really savage leg lock, which I thought was awesome. And Davis then, in response to that, once he gets out, he does a flash stuffed pile driver and then does like a Falcon Arrow style throw off of the turnbuckles. And that's shortly thereafter, that's where Jelwa does the body slam. He goes up and goes for a senton atomico, but Davis rolls out of the way, hits the pile driver, the running lariat, and that's all she wrote. Look, nice, neat, tidy little match. It was good stuff. 3.5 stars. It was very good. It lived up to my expectations. So what else can I say? Next, we had Shane Taylor Productions, who had an open challenge for the Ring of Honor World 6-Man Tag Team titles. They were supposed to fight the Rascals for these 6-man tag titles, but something got switched around. There was supposed to be a World Tag Team title match, but Beast Mortos is having visa issues or something. I'm not quite clear on what's happening exactly. So the Rascals ended up wrestling on the pre-show. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering, Warren, did you watch the pre-show? No. I said that on Thursday. Like, I'm mustering up the energy to watch this pay-per-view. I'm not throwing in the pre-show on top of that for a show that I'm not invested in. I'm not going to go watch a pre-show on top of that. So I didn't watch the pre-show. You're going to have to go find someone else to give you some thoughts on the pre-show. So basically what this all led to was the Rascals fighting the premier athletes on the pre-show. And instead we had the Shane Taylor Productions crew having an open challenge, which was met by the Outrunners and Dalton Castle, who won the titles in a fine match that got some energy going because the people liked the Outrunners and they were doing their shenanigans, and it was just like something, and Dalton Castle as well. It was all just like, so it's as if we were breathing life into this very tepid, drab show. So these two teams came together, and look, STP worked really well together. Like it was a good little match that was raised because of the energy that it brought, that was severely lacking from the rest of the show. I'd give this like a 3.25 star match. It was fine. I don't have many details here other than the structure was what all led to Dalton Castle getting the big hot tag at the end. He had been crushed against the barricades by Shane Taylor Productions early on in the match, and he was like completely knocked out for the entirety of the match. It was mostly like a 3-on-2. Shane Taylor Productions on the Outrunners, Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum. That was essentially the match, but yeah, it was entertaining because it had life, because it had stuff happening and an emotional attachment. And the Outrunners and Dalton Castle, your new Ring of Honor 6-man tag champs. So good for them. After this, we had a backstage segment where STP was with Lexi Nair. Forgot to mention, after the match, before we get to that, after the match, Orange Cassidy came out as STP were still beaten down on the baby faces. Orange Cassidy came out with Mark Briscoe, and they chased the heels away. Cassidy threw some weak punches with Anthony Ogogo. I always forget Anthony Ogogo is still on the payroll here. And Briscoe nails Ogogo in the midsection with a chair, and STP retreats, and there you go. So that leads us to our following backstage segment where STP challenged Mark Briscoe and Orange Cassidy to a match, STP versus the Conglomeration on Collision. And then we go to Mark Briscoe and Orange Cassidy, who accept the challenge, and there we go. Lee Moriarty defeated Ace Austin to retain the Ring of Honor Pure title. This was fine. Good. competent, well done, smartly executed, pure match that had more chain wrestling than in the opening match that had pure wrestling. We'll get to that in a second, but no, it was good. It was competently done, but unfortunately, again, sort of bereft of life. I don't think the crowd was all that much into it, but this wasn't bad. But it's not something where I'm like, oh yeah, this was so good. But competent, well done, very well done. 3.25 stars. Moriarty retains, like I said, the chicken wing. It's fine. I don't know what to tell you. Like these were the doldrums. These, every match I'm going to talk about moving forward, there's all matches where you're like, whew, can't we just get some, like, again, like that, this was the problem. Just no pulse to these fucking matches. No passion, no drive, no second gear. I've been waiting for the second gear the entirety of the show. This leads to a segment after the match where Jordan Oliver and Alec Price come out to meet Lexi Nair at the top of the ramp. And they discuss how they were supposed to challenge for the titles, but, they've been fucked over. And, Alec Price is a wild man, whereas Jordan Oliver is he's in a suit and he controls Alec Price's outbursts. He's very spontaneous, whereas Jordan Oliver is very cool and collected. He's the businessman of the two. And they basically put out a challenge. They're like, who wants to fight us, for a chance at the number one contendership or whatever. And Matt Taven and Mike Bennett show up. I thought Matt Taven was done. I thought he would be, maybe he's doing a per date deal. I don't know, but I thought he was done. Sexual Matt Taven. You can tell Mike Bennett was cutting this promo and he's like, look, at this point, who cares? And I'm just going to cut the most casual promo of all time. Some very tame banter, and there we go. Deonna Purrazzo defeated Diamante to retain the Ring of Honor Women's Pure title. This was mediocre. Competent, but it's like, I don't know, no heat. And there were 3 pure matches on the show, and I speculated on the preview on stream that this would be a little too much. 3 pure matches, and it was. And there was no engagement. No one cared. And the match was, look, like I said also on the preview, when I think pure matches, I do not think Diamante, especially in 2026. I don't know. Venus de Milo locked in. Diamante taps. 2.75 star match. I don't know what you want from me here. After the match, we get a backstage segment with Action Andretti. We'll come back to that. And another one with Red Velvet, who won her match. We'll talk about that one too. And she complains about not being in the Owen Hart tournament because, of course, the AEW stuff matters. And she signed Willow Nightingale's open contract for the TBS title on Collision. AR Fox defeated Lio Rush to retain the Ring of Honor World Television title that AR Fox just won on Thursday. Would have been a shame if he had lost it the very next day. This was good, but not definitely like a good little match. And these two guys together should not be doing good little matches. If you're putting AR Fox and Lio Rush in the same ring, I am not expecting good little match. I'm expecting, holy shit, this fucking match. That's what I'm expecting. And that's not what I got. Again, nothing inherently wrong with it. Well done and whatnot. Fox does a couple of his key spots, like the run-up post moonsault, on the floor and whatnot, and the roll-through cutter. And he, ends the match by doing a split-legged frog splash, and that's good. And Lio Rush was fine, but, there was a time where Lio Rush was a much more compelling wrestler than this. I don't know if he's letting the Blackheart Gollum thing take over because, it's not doing it for me. And if that's hindering what he's doing in the ring, then I have no issue with it at all. And during the match, Action Andretti came out to support Lio Rush, but we all saw what was going to come here, where Action Andretti pushed Lio Rush off of the top ropes, which allowed AR Fox, while the ref's back was turned, which allowed AR Fox to win the match with the 450 splash, right? So it's all right. Like 3 stars, but I was really expecting something much more electric and dynamic and, the crowd pleaser match, something to just like, oh shit, like, okay, good. We got this on the lower card and it was just really exciting. I was really expecting something more from these two. And that leads us to what happened backstage a little later on in the evening, where Action Andretti explains his actions, saying that he felt discarded by Lio Rush after they broke up. Lio Rush saying, I have to go discover myself, and never returning any calls. And he basically says, you know what, crew, we're done. So we're going to have former tag team partners go after each other. Who is the Marty Jannetty in this situation? Sammy Guevara is interviewed backstage and, basically breaks down the situation that the tag team titles aren't defended because Mordos isn't there. So instead, what he decides to do is challenge Darby Allin for the AEW World title, saying that in the past, I've beat you 4 times, Darby. Now, listen, I'm going to tell you one thing. Okay. And this is happening on Collision, of course. But this is an aside. It has nothing to do with Ring of Honor. But Sammy fucking Guevara, who hasn't been on AEW proper in, well over a year at this point, if not years plural, I'd have to check, and I just don't feel like doing it right now. And it hasn't been there in a fucking long time, coming out and staking a claim to the world title because he's beaten the champion 4 times when the champion was in his jobber days. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I get it. I understand they're trying to create a sense of connection, but I think this is kind of cheap. This is something I don't think anyone really wants to see either. Who cares? A pivot from, hey, I have no tag partner tonight, so give me a world championship against Darby Allin is like, I think it sort of cheapens the title. And I understand that it goes in Darby's idea that he says no to no one except MJF. I understand that that's his gimmick, but we have to have standards, folks. We have to have standards. And a Ring of Honor J Brown, who used to be on AEW's main shows, who is no longer there because multiple reasons, shouldn't be dragged out of nowhere to fight Darby Allin and, in a match where you're like, Sammy Guevara is never winning this title. Like, that's the other thing too. Like, I don't know. I think Darby could have had, at that point, if this is what we have to do, if this is what we decided to do, and that is to continue giving Darby defense after defense after defense and feeding him up to Sammy Guevara to continue that, we might as well have given Darby the night off. Red Velvet defeated Viva Van to retain the Ring of Honor Women's World Television title. This was an NXT ass match. This was, Thea Hale versus Izzy Dame. You could see name whoever two NIL wrestlers that you can think of, because I don't know them all because they all have like the most uninspired generic names. Just think of that. Picture that match in your mind, and this is what it was, where you saw the choreography, and at some point, like, they're supposed to be working hard in this match, and everything is soft, and they're taking their time. The pace is very, very slow, and at some point, they start striking each other, and then they fall down, working like, oh, we're collapsed, exhausted, and like, no, I'm not buying that you're collapsed or exhausted. This match is so slow. I don't know. And again, this is another match where I saw people going, this match was great. And I'm like, what are we watching? Are we watching the same thing? This was pure NXT level match. And maybe that's why people enjoyed it. 2.25 star match. And we opened the show up, the main card, with Nigel McGuinness defeating Josh Woods in a pure rules match. And there's something that happened to Josh Woods in the match towards the end, and I think he got kicked by Nigel in the corner, and that seemed to have rung his bell because the referee was checking on him, and at some point Nigel just tried to cover him, just like, okay, let's go to the finish type of thing. And he covered him, and Woods kicked out. And then Nigel tried to do a couple of other things, and Woods didn't look quite responsive. I think he got his bell rung pretty hard. And then that led to Nigel giving him a lariat, covering him, and you could hear the ref say, "Stay down." And they got the 3 count. That clearly was not the finish. And it really destroyed the finish, like the final stretch of the match. It just completely fell apart. But previous to that, I didn't think this match was particularly compelling to begin with. No chain wrestling at all. It's just it felt clunky. It felt like everyone was trying to do things, but nothing was meshing. They weren't coming together. I didn't think this was very good. And then the finish happens, and it all falls apart. So it's like, 2.5 star match. And they also do a bit here. Like, they actually do a comedy bit during a pure rules match where Nigel goes and puts on a headset to say, fellas, he comes to do like play-by-play analysis that his match is not doing well. And then Josh Woods gets on another headset and says, well, I think it's going pretty good, actually, Nigel. And then the referee gets his own headset and he's like, well, I think, you guys should get back in the ring. And I'm like, we're doing comedy bits in a pure rules match. And God bless the audience who turned on this bit and started chanting, "We want wrestling." Thank God. Because that was stupid. And in a pure rules match, Nigel should know better. Ultimately, that's my analysis. Nigel should know better. Anyway, that's it. I didn't watch the pre-show. I don't even know what was on the pre-show. Aside from the Rascals versus the Premier Athletes, I don't even know what was on. And that's fine. So that's it. Nothing really extra to add. This was a mediocre show that really was carried by the business end of the show, the last 3 matches particularly. But then again, they weren't to a level where the show felt elevated either, and it really was too little, too late, essentially. I do not recommend watching this show. I think it's a complete waste of your time. And if you want, Bandito and Blake Christian was excellent. And if you want to see how good, if you haven't seen Blake Christian wrestle a big time match in a while, you can go check this out and see how excellent he was. I think for that specifically, I think that's very meaningful. He was very, very good. He was excellent in this match. So was Bandito, but that's a little more expected. Anyway, those are my thoughts. And that about does it for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you all very much for being here. I appreciate it tremendously. Do leave a like on YouTube, or a 5-star review, or a 5-star rating would all be awesome. First time here, subscribe, make sure that, or follow or whatever. Make sure that you never miss another moment of me. I will be back tomorrow, Thursday, with the AEW Dynamite review per usual. And then later on in the evening, we'll be having a live stream over there on YouTube like we usually do, again, per usual, on Wednesday nights and Thursday nights. We do this on Thursday nights on YouTube, so we would love to have you there. But in the meantime, I will bid you adieu and wish you a great rest of your week. Thanking you again for being here, and I'll salute you by saying, I'll see you next time.